Hello everyone! So I finally have a chance to sit down and do this video since Mountain View had sent me Jamal here for an unboxing video. I kind of wanted to extend that into a prepping and a painting video, so this will be the prepping section. So this will be how to prep a model horse resin. It's pretty simple. Mountain View's castings are really clean, so it really shouldn't take too much work to prep these castings. So I'm just going to first start by going through some of the stuff that I'll probably be using while doing this. First and foremost is this glazing and spot putty. I like this a lot for filling little divots and stuff. It is stinky, and it is, you know, kind of toxic, so you want to wear a mask and gloves when you use this stuff, but I haven't found anything that has the ease of use as this, and it sands really well, smooths really well, and dries really fast so you can work quickly. So I really like this stuff. I do really love modeling paste and similar modeling paste from companies and things, but the only thing with the modeling paste is that it's water soluble. Let me see if where's my modeling paste? Well, here's a couple. Actually, they're all right here. Look at that. So here's a bunch of modeling paste type ones. Perfect plastic putty, Vallejo plastic putty, and this is the modeling paste by Liquitex. This is the one you see a lot of people recommend. I'll put all links in the descriptions to as much as I can. Most of this stuff can be found on Amazon. But yeah, this stuff is water soluble, so you can't really use that before you've washed your resin. So the first, usually you wash it, you prep it, and then, you sand and everything, so you have your fingers all over it, you got dust all over it from the sanding and stuff, so then you want to wash it again before you prime. So you really can't use modeling paste before you wash it the last time. So you want to do that last, and you want to be careful so you don't get your fingers all over it. So, I mean, you can even prep it on top of the primer if you've missed something. So I use it kind of a boo-boo fixer. It's great for when you're painting and you missed a seam or something, so you just kind of like put a little bit of modeling paste in there, let it dry, smooth it out a little bit, and then you can continue painting. But for the general prepping, I like to use this because it doesn't wash off with water, but it is kind of stinkorific. So generally, here's my carbide scrapers. I'll probably be using some of these. This is your General Rio Rondo one, as you can see. It's had a lot of use. These last forever. I got these as a gift in when I first started in 2011. I only broke one tip out of the set, but I tend to use this tip most of the time, or one or two tips every so often. These are Kelly Sealy's. I also had a video on those, unboxing those. These are finer almost and really sharp, so they're great for small things and really small detail areas. Yeah, so those are all my carbide scraper things there. Here's some Ave safety solvent. It's used for smoothing epoxy sculpt. It can be used on pretty much any sculpting epoxy. But I also found it also smooths this well, because there's nothing really that will smooth this because you can't use water with it. So this actually seems to, and the only other thing I found was acetone, and it's just like, why would it's just too much. This stuff seems to work with it, so I tend to use this to smooth this out when I need to, but it sands pretty smooth anyway. We've got a bunch of files here. These are a lot of needle files. I like the diamond coated ones. The regular kind tends to gunk up really fast, and then they're not very good anymore. And here's a bunch of different riffers, different shapes of needle files, some regular files, sanding sticks, maybe some sanding sponges in here, or if you have sanding paper. And these tools, what are these? These are dental thingy things. I bent this straight. Why is this not focusing? Anyway, I bent this straight. It's like a silicone tip here. These are great for, applying that, as you can see, applying that spot putty. So yeah, so first things first, what you want to do when you first get your little dude is give him a good wash with some soap and water. This is going to get off all the resin release and, any oils or anything from production. So what you do, prepping wise, will actually stick. So let's take this to the slop sink and give him a good wash. I also have a video on washing model horses. I'll put that in the description. I'm not really going to go into that too much because I've already done a whole video on that. So I'll put that link in the description, and we'll just give him a quick wash. And I'm not really going to talk during that, so. Okay, so he's all washed up. I just dried him off with just one of the shop towel things. So he's all dry and washed, so most of that residue and stuff should be off. So anything we prep on him should stay and bond with the resin. You know, we're gonna have to wash him again after we're done because we're gonna be handling him a lot, so, and sanding and stuff. But right now he is ready for prep. So the very first thing I like to do is actually hold these guys up to a light, especially any thin areas, to see if there are any sort of pinholes and such that kind of need poking out, because if you have air bubbles close to the surface, when you start painting it, some of the materials in the paints, depending on what you use, especially if you use spray primers and things, they do tend to have like acetone type stuff in them, you know, stuff that'll dissolve the resin, which helps it bond. And if it's very thin towards the surface, the resin, because there's a bubble under it, it tends to appear later, and you don't want that when you're painting. So you kind of just want to generally go over and look and see if you see any sort of, you know, any major, so what I'm looking for, you know, if you see anything that may resemble a bubble or something. So I want to take a look at that little speck right here, if you can see it, because I have to look closer because I'm in the camera right now. But so yeah, so I like to hold these up to a light. And as you can see, you can kind of see through the resin a little bit, and see if you can, if you see if there's any sort of major bubbles or anything under the surface that you can't see normally. So you might have to move this around a little bit to try and get that lighting, but you can see where it gets lighter. You know, you're seeing through the resin there, and I don't see any bubbles. He looks great. So yeah, so that's the first thing I do. So I'm going to give this a little more look through carefully instead of just through the camera here, so I can do a good job, and I'll be right back. Alright, so he looks pretty good. I don't see anything major that needs attention under the resin there that needs to be dug out. That spot was a little pinhole, but these are surface pinholes. It's normal. It's probably where the pour spout was, and that generally happens there, so you can kind of see, hopefully, that little... It's going to be really hard to show on camera. There's a couple of little pinholes in here. This here is a little etching tool. It's very pointy. You can use, you know, a needle or something, but I kind of like to just poke at those holes to make sure they're open. If there's no little resin, you know, thin skin on there, and you'll find a few, and you just kind of poke them and open them up so you can fill them. Like, you don't have to go crazy. Just, you know, get that hole available, basically. So there's really not that many. There's only a few here, and I guarantee you this is where a pour spout was, because it's going in a circle. So totally normal. Just like how, see these wires and stuff here, that is also totally normal. That is under the resin. It's not going to be a problem. You just prep right over that. It is a little exposed, but all you have to do is just layer some super glue on top of that to just get a protective barrier so you can paint it, and it's not going to have a problem. As long as it's not interfering with the actual sculpt, where it's going to, you know, where, you know, it's not correct, then wires sticking out or whatever are totally fine. See, because there was a little bit of thin resin on top of that one, so that I kind of picked off, but we'll just file that down and put some crazy glue on top, because crazy glue is basically resin, so a nice sturdy resin. So we picked those out, and that's pretty much all he needs to have at the moment. Just checking these pinholes. I can't tell. Pinhole? No, it's just my dirty finger. Okay. And these, you know, I'm sure there'll probably be some pinholes that'll pop up after we prime it, which, you know, totally normal. That's just part of the prepping. So what I'm going to do now we're going to start, I guess, you know, I'll file first. Although he's so clean. He's like already filed down, so it's not much. A lot of times you'll have seams sticking up, but these look like they were like attended to, so they weren't so uneven. So I might just start in with the the spot putty first. We can use this. Yeah, we may as well go over the file first, cause just get things as smooth as we can, in case there are any spots that are like that. So what I do, I take, what do we want to use? Probably like one of these round ones. I don't like that one. Something like so. And then I'm just going to go along where seams generally are, like behind the legs, all the way down. And then we just file, you know, as smooth as possible. We don't have to get it like perfect because we're going to fill some of that because, you know, it's impossible if the, you know, seam is uneven or has a gap. So you just want to get any rough edges smooth off, attend to any, you know, any little blips and blops that need to be, you know, shaved off. So yeah, just go through with your or sanding sticks and needle files and get a nice. Here's some sanding sticks. Yeah. See some of that wire is right under the surface, so we kind of want to, you know, get that little thin resin surface off because that may be a problem later, just like at the pinholes. But again, we're gonna put crazy glue over that, which is a, you know, a sturdier cover for that, and it'll give us a nice smooth top here. So I'm going to go through and give him a good sanding and filing and come back. Okay, so I went through. He didn't really need much of the, you know, sanding down the seams. I took my scraper a little bit in some areas, like in between the ears and stuff, to get out some seams that were in there. But mostly just filed down a little bit where I saw some seams. But most of them were pretty evened out and they just need to be filled. So it really didn't need too much craziness on the scraping and stuff. So now what I'm going to do next is spot putty. Sorry. Is spot putty time. So I didn't want to like give him a good sanding all over yet because I'm going to make a mess with the spot putty, so we'll do it all at the same time. Spot putty is next. I like to make sure you wear a glove. Oh, actually, it should be on my other hand. Ooh, excuse me. Okay. Glib. And you probably want something to kind of just dispense it on because it just makes it a lot easier than working from the bottle. So what we're going to do, I should need a mask too because this stinks. For this, you're going to want a P-rated mask, a P95 or a respirator thing like this. N95 doesn't do much for fumes of like paint and stuff. It only works for like particles and like dust. So you want a P-rated mask or one of these respirators so you don't smell it. So what we're going to do here, we're going to put a little bit on here. And I've gone through this before on some micro videos and stuff, but we'll go through it and how we do it here. So you want your, where's my things? Little rubber things handy. This is a helpful tip here where it's like flat, you know, so you can kind of putty it on. So now you're just going to go through and see where all those indents were from the seams. Sliding in here is not the best for this. And you're going to kind of just paint it on, like so. And you know, take your finger. You can kind of see where that had filled in the gap there. So you're going to go through and here's our pinholes here. We're going to put that on the pinholes and then kind of, so then it kind of brings out all the issues when you go over it. So we're just going to go through and do this. So, I mean, that's pretty self-explanatory. Yeah, you kind of paint it on with like, you know, the silicone shaper things are great. And then just take your finger, make sure you have a glove on, and kind of rub it. And it kind of fills all those divots. So I'm going to go through and do all that, and I'll be back. Alright, so we're back, and I've gone through, and I filled what I think needs filling with the spot putty, and now we're just going to basically sand. you know, sand and scrape and just continue doing what we were doing. So it's basically a back and forth. So now I'm going to, you know, basically do the same thing that I did before I put the spot putty on, just after it. I mean, this time I'm going to like go over the whole deal with a whole, you know, nice light sanding so we get a nice smooth finish, and then basically just repeat if you see any other areas that need it, to refill it. So it's a lot of back and forth until you think you get, you know, everything, and then once you get, when you think you get everything, that's when you whip out that primer and then you realize you really didn't get everything. So what I'm going to do now is, yeah, just basically just sand all this stuff down, give it a nice light sanding, and go back and forth until we have, you know, what I think is ready for primer. So I'm going to do that because it's no sense in watching me because it's pretty self-explanatory, and I'll be back with a primer. Alright, so he's had another wash, he's had a nice sanding all over, another layer of some of the spot putty, and you can kind of see how, you know, we got most of the excess off and it just kind of stays in the gaps. You know, it's very hard to see on the white where things need to be done, so you're probably going to want to use a colored primer when you do your first couple of layers of primer to double check that you got everything, because it definitely shows more than the white. As you can see, like that was already there from when the, you know, when they prepped the thing, so you can't even really see that until you start really filling these. And I'm sure there's more on here that I missed, even in these areas, like you can't really tell if it needs more or not, you know, so it gets a little messy. So it's best to use a color primer at least the first few layers until you have it where you want it. You can always spray a white primer over it if you need a starting point on white, but I mean, he's going to be bay, so I'm going to use a red primer, and so that would be a great starting point for that. But if you want a white starting point after you finish with your colored primer and figuring out it's all prepped, then you can just spray a white primer over it and you have white to start. So I'm going to let him finish air drying. You can see he's still got a couple of little wet spots in here. So he's going to air dry and we'll come back and prime. Alright, it's prime time. He's all dry and he's ready for his first shot of primer to see where we're at. I'm going to use a red primer. I'm using the Ace brand, hardware store brand primer. I actually really love this primer. It's like the best primer I've found for almost anything. I mean, Duplicolor is good. It's almost like Duplicolor but toothier, which I love about it. It's like a cross between Duplicolor and the Krylon consistency of primer. Anyway, I just really love this primer. So I actually need to get more of this. But, you know, you can use Rust-Oleum, Duplicolor, whatever, but I'm just going to use this one. So I would like to have done this outside, but it's really gross out, so figured we'll just do this so I can show you. Double filter here anyway. So, alright, so let's prime them up. See where we're at. So you can hear me. So we're actually pretty good. Normally I don't do this heavy of a layer of the first primer, but he was looking pretty good, so I just kept going. There's a couple of spots, like there's a little seam like here I still need to get, and but other than that, he looks pretty good. He doesn't need any much more touch up other than that seam and maybe a little divot here and there. But yeah, he looks pretty good, so he's pretty much ready to go. That's the great thing about clean castings, is that they don't need that much. You just gotta watch what you miss on the clean ones, because it's easy to miss small things because you're not as intently looking at it as if it were a rougher cast. So just be careful with that. Otherwise, yeah, he's pretty clean. He's pretty much ready to paint at that rate. If I were to, when I fill these little divots, I'll do the same thing with the spot putty. I'll just fill it, sand it a little bit. I won't wash him because he's pretty much washed. Maybe just take a damp paper towel over the area that I've touched. It's basically just little spot cleaning and touching up, and then just prime put some primer back over that when you're done, and just, you know, keep going until you have it as smooth as you want. And that's pretty much it. That's how you prep a resin. Not much different than prepping a plastic, honestly. It's just you have to be careful because it is softer than plastic, so you will scratch it more with harder sandpaper and stuff, and it's easier to scrape it with things, so don't push too hard. But other than that, it's pretty much the same thing. So hopefully this has helped. Please like, comment, subscribe, share. Check the video description for all the links to the products, to this little cutie, and all that jazz, and I'll see you next time. Bye.